Mr Acting Speaker. I have great privilege in speaking on this motion by the member for Hammond regarding the Vietnam Veterans Day. On the 18th of August each year, we as a nation pause to acknowledge and remember the great sacrifices that many Australians made while serving our country during the nation's 10-year involvement in the Vietnam War. These 10 years were very traumatic and in many cases resulted in many deaths and long-term injuries. While some injuries were evident at the time upon returning to Australia after the war, however, there were lots of issues that came out for many of our gallant diggers whenever the rest of Australia served from that war afterwards. They weren't evident at the time of coming in. I had several of my friends who enlisted and also many who were drafted. And when I mean drafted, this was when the marble lottery, where if a marble was drawn out and had your birthday on it, then you were compelled to serve alongside others who might have also been regular soldiers and enlisted on their own accord. Those in this category were conscripted, and many of them had only just started their new jobs, or as was the case in many incidents, just coming out of school, with very little knowledge or interest in military life. When many of our mates came back, well, many of my mates came back, they were not welcomed back by the public. In many cases, those returning military personnel were shunned, and this caused great stress to those returning and also for those families of those returning diggers. These people were military people, whether they were soldiers, airmen, sailors, or wherever they may have been. They were following orders, as do members of any military organisation. It was the federal government at the time that basically forced this war upon these people and Australia. Vietnam Veterans Day is more than a date in our history. It marks the Battle of Long Tan, fought on the 18th of August 1966 in the pouring rain of a South Vietnam rubber plantation. It was here that 108 soldiers from Delta Company, 6th Battalion Royal Australian Regiment faced a force of more than 2,000 Viet Cong and North Vietnamese troops. For many hours, these men held their ground under intense fire, and by the end of the day, 18 Australians had been killed and 24 wounded. This was the costliest single battle for our forces in Vietnam and became a testament of their courage, their discipline, and also their mateship. On the third anniversary in 1969, veterans returned to the battlefield and erected the Long Tan Cross, a simple memorial to those who died, and is what began at that stage as the Long Tan Great Day. This grew over time to honour those who served in Vietnam. In 1987, the Prime Minister at the time, Bob Hawke, formally declared the 18th of August as Vietnam Veterans Day. As been mentioned earlier, more than 60,000 Australians served in Vietnam over the years. However, only 523 never came home. And it is those 523 that we must also remember, because they fought there, they gave their lives and sacrifices for us here in Australia. Thousands more carried wounds, either visible or invisible, for many years. My late brother Peter served in the Australian Regular Army and served 2 tours of Vietnam, with 2 occasions during this war, retiring after 26 years in the Regular Army, reaching the rank of captain. I mentioned the member for Narungga a minute ago. During that time, my brother, he went across there on 2 tours, but when he came back, he still had the memory and the impacts of what he saw over there. But he had the opportunity, but when he was there, he actually wanted to do it because he enlisted. He wanted to fight for the freedom of not only for Australia, but also a challenge on our coastal lines out in another country. I still have many of my friends who are carrying the wounds of this war, and they will never completely recover, especially those who have memories, especially from their mental capacity and also the mental anguish they still carry to today. I had many of those of my friends came back after being shunned by the general public, carrying these wounds and the memories and things like that. And unfortunately, I've had a few have committed suicide because of the trauma and lost their families and they lost lots of things. And they never really recovered from the opportunities over there. Our RSL in Port Pirie has a great military museum. And in 2009, I was able to assist them in obtaining a Huey helicopter from Queensland. And it's this piece of equipment that many who may still have the trauma of the war in their minds and have not fully recovered, they sit in the cockpit, and this allows them, with the noise of the background, allows them to meditate for a few moments, and this assists them in their movement forward, recovering from their trauma and what's been troubling them for many, many years. During my time as the Minister for Veterans Affairs, I had the honour of attending many services across all of South Australia, including the service of the South Vietnamese community, who are forever grateful for our gallant diggers for their services in South Vietnam and in the Vietnam War, because if it wasn't for us, they wouldn't have had the freedom that they do have today. So on the 18th of August, we remember not only the men of Long Tang, but also the nurses, the pilots, the Navy, the support crews, the families and everyone who bore this burden of this war. As been mentioned in this House earlier on, and I compliment the member for Hammond as the opposition Minister for Veterans Affairs, we've been to many occasions. And Vietnam Veterans Day is something that's bipartisan. We are here all to remember those people who gave their services and all of that there. One of the things that, as I said, my marble didn't come out, so I don't have the knowledge or the trauma of having to serve in a war that I didn't particularly agree with at the time. But as I said earlier, I've lost lots of my friends. Lots of my friends, when I was working at the smelters, they had to leave their employment because they just couldn't maintain the image or the attention. And I still have friends that when we go to the Vietnam Veterans Day, they want to talk about the old days. They want to talk about what they did and some of the things. And I find that that's something that's consoling for them. It helps them through the trauma. It helps them to live another day. But certainly it's been one of those journeys in my personal life that I've seen. As I say, my parents, my dad was in the army, my brother was in the army, my late brother was in the Vietnam, do tours there in the regular army. My uncles were in the war, but we need to pay tribute to those people who gave the supreme sacrifice for what we have here today in Australia. In closing, I just say to all our Vietnam veterans, thank you for your courage, your service and your sacrifice. And I commend the motion to the House.
Member for